The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Assalamu alaikum. That means peace be unto you. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad. Welcome to Liberated Sisters. Today is a full justice report. Where do we go from here? The Final Call newspaper looks at the questions that remain in the fight for justice for George Floyd and Black America. We have charges of police wilding in the streets, protesters. Advocates say brutal cops are still killing and abusing people. That's going to lead out the show. After that, we will bring you the Liberated Sisters COVID report. This is a series of information and update by Ethnic Media Services, our partner. Myself and Angela Birdsong will give you highlights from, again, the Liberated Sisters COVID report, what's happening with the global pandemic and how that impacts you. After that, we bring you the Farrakhan factor. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's highly anticipated address to the world takes place on July 4th. God willing, we will bring right after that an excerpt of Farrakhan predicted the unraveling of a great nation. This address was delivered on June 8th via webcast by his national assistant, student minister Ismail Muhammad. But first, a word on why and when Farrakhan speaks, the world should listen.
Greetings, dear listeners. We have been blessed by Almighty God Allah over the 90 years of our work in the Nation of Islam and lifting our people up from the miserable condition in which we find ourselves. We ask your support of our effort, and we hope that you will be generous and make a contribution to the work of the Nation of Islam. Honorable Minister Farrakhan by clicking the button or go to noi.org/donate. We thank you in advance for your support. May Allah continue to bless you and families. Assalamu alaikum.
This house is dedicated to knowledge and the sing of knowledge. Elijah Muhammad inspired new thought, new mind, new way of civilization among black people. But he wanted a house from which a light could be lifted up to give guidance to all who would be guided as this begins to close this national for and retraining of black and women for the talent of human family of our planet. I named this month as the only one that the Quran named the chapter after. All human beings be eradicated. That is purpose, the national center.
In today's Liberated Sisters COVID report, Caught in the grip of a triple crisis, America moved forward. Been tracking the pandemic with ethnic media services during weekly conference calls, and recently the conference call dealt with the United States in the grip of a triple crisis. You have the COVID-19 pandemic, the resulting economic collapse, and an eruption of civil unrest over violent racist confrontations. So what have we learned, and what can we do to address the deep-seated structural inequalities these crises reveal? Here is Roy P. Crocker, professor of law at the University of Southern California and author of the book Nigger Theory, Professor Jody Armour, on why we need criminal justice reform.
And I'd like to connect my remarks to those that went just before me by the doctor. I connect that to law enforcement reform in this moment that's been precipitated by brutal law misconduct in relation to another black person. You know, I started writing about this area, my first book was in 1997. It was entitled Negrophobia and Reasonable Racism, The Hidden Cost of Being Black in America. And it was really about every one of the issues we're talking about today. So it seems nothing's changed but what year it is. It seems that when we were going through these marches in 2013, 14, 15, Black Lives Matter movement, there was a wash, rinse, repeat cycle that you could anticipate that we were always going to go through. It was going to be, first, let's convene a commission. Then let's hold some public hearings. Then let's have some people vent about their frustration and anger. And then we're going to have a few policy folks say, well, I know, here's some interventions that are going to prevent this from happening again. And they're going to come up with some interventions like body cams. Someone's going to say there's going to be another set of hashtags. That isn't going to solve it. Someone's going to say, what about implicit bias training? More hashtags. Somebody's going to say, well, what about de-escalation training? More hashtags. Some community policing. And here we are looking at a map in Minnesota. There, the police department had all those interventions. There are departments to start implementing those interventions, and it didn't solve the problem. In fact, as was pointed out going in, you had not only the officer who actually had his knee on the neck of George Floyd, but the others who just stood by. So I think we're coming to realize that those interventions are, there's not a technological fix. There's not a way to tweak policy and fix this problem, that it really requires some deeper, and it has to do with structural racism, to be sure. The only way we're going to avoid having to go through this in is start to address those structural racism issues. But beyond structural racism, it also has to do with our hearts and minds and our lack of care and concern, empathy for Black lives. Black lives just don't matter is the bottom line here. Black lives haven't mattered since the inception of this nation of the, founders celebrating liberty and democracy and slaves. Then we had a cataclysmic race war, 600,000 dead Americans, and we went into Jim Crow. Black lives didn't matter under Jim Crow as much as non-Black lives. And now we're looking at, if you walk down Los Angeles to Skid Row, you walk on the street in Skid Row, which is probably the fiercest expression of violence in America. Everyone, all kinds of folks. I just had to do that Newark's book. 75%, you go into prisons and jails, and the demographics look roughly the same. Right? COVID-19, of course, hidden activities. I know, as I said, hearts and minds, a trope for our is Katrina 9/4 with those blacks staying water up to their neck. And a day go by, 3 days, 4 days go by. Sean Penn is going there handing out fresh water because he had his act together. Was panic collectively those Black lives. Those planes ran into those buildings in New York Island. There was a panic of it. We just done. Nothing kept us from offering relief to them. Right? And so I have a book coming out on August 18th, which I have to do a lot of research and psychological studies that point out how an in-group empty bias that makes us the same level of care and concern group members as in-group members. Hands on the level of mirror neurons on a neuronal level, it's not a lot of times. The bottom line is relative differences don't belong to our in-group. Now, how does that play out in terms of the position in which we find ourselves? The solution isn't the logical ones where we learned things or policy tweaks. We have to cut this department. That activists have been that for some time, the last several years, and now this is bringing home. We need to make deep slashes in the budget departments and reallocate those resources to the things the Doc Foreman was getting about. Address homelessness, or house, my preferred way of talking about it. Address care, address income disparities. We can do a lot of things if we have the resources to do them, but right now we're being sucked up by our law enforcement. Here in LA, we have about a $5.5 annual budget we're looking at coming out in the coming year. Nearly 54% of that, 53-point-something% of that in the mayor budget was to go to LAPD. And you have those kind of staggering numbers around. You take that out of those police departments, reallocate it, divert it to the kinds of problems we're talking about, and we can have a better health outcomes, we can address the unemployment issue, and we can have a lot less violence against black folk. Generally, because violence is often driven by enforcement of level nonviolent offenses. George Floyd did that, passing allegedly counterfeit $20 low-level nonviolent offenses. We cut down on the enforcement of stop and frisk in New York, which is why you need a lot of times these police personnel. The crime rate didn't go up, it went down. When police decided they were going to have a work stop slow down in 2014, 2015 after Eric Garner's I Can't Breathe, and there were marches upset, and they had a conflict with de Blasio. They had a work slow down for the crime didn't spike, actually went down a little because they did much proactive police. So you can reduce these things reducing our public safety. And you can have the one divert their kind of policing. You reduce the size. Those funds go to other social services, social workers, that sort of thing. You focus the police attention on what it really should be focused. That's solving murders, rapes, assaults, robberies. A lot of these only at a 45% rate. That's the police resources have been diverted from engagement and good police work like that and going toward broken windows police. That's it.
Other speakers for the King the Pandemic session on Caught in the of a Triple Crisis included Dr. Tung Nguyen, professor in the Division of General Internal Medicine at UCFS, John C. Yang, president and executive director of Asian Americans Advancing Justice, and Thomas Sayans, president and general counsel of MALDEF. To take us further into the Liberated Sisters COVID report, here is Angela Birdsong.
Ethnic Media Services, the Shadow Pandemic COVID-19's Impact on Women briefing, brings experts to discuss a United Nations Women report that explains how the crisis has exacerbated gender inequality, discuss the history of women in pandemics, and track the rise of domestic violence on women. Media Health and Domestic Violence at Family Angeles says intimate part violence in itself.
And domestic, and I don't mean to misuse, it's across all cultures, all counties, all small villages, and huge cities. I don't know of any incident or religion. It's across the board. And I've worked in Boston, in Costa Rica, I've lived in France, I've lived in Hawaii and Los Angeles, and everywhere I go, I hear about communities and domestic violence.
Dr. Beatrice Duncan, Policy Advisor, Rule of Law for United Nations Women, gives examples of the effect of COVID on domestic violence.
So let me give you some concrete examples. We know that women around the world are down situations in which they are in stay-at-home situations, in quarantine situations, or in curfew situations. This is relegating them to the household or to be in the same environment with their abusers. As a result, we have seen a threefold spike in the incidence of intimate partner violence or domestic violence. We are seeing situations in which women are being abused not only by their partners, but sometimes also by their adolescent children. Many courts have shut down. Many courts are not sitting. A lot of cases have been put on adjournment or on hold. Many women are not receiving the protection orders that they need. A lot of women are also not receiving either maintenance for themselves or maintenance for their children. So there are a lot of judicial suspensions.
In Los Angeles, some help is available, states Mimi Lynn of Venice Family Clinic.
In Los Angeles, you can continue to get a restraining order at the courts. So even though the courts are closed for everything, you can still get a restraining order. The other thing about specific to Los Angeles is when you call a domestic violence hotline, they can help you get into a motel. A lot of the shelters now have a voucher program where they can't take you into their shelter, but they can take you. They can try to help you get in a motel if there's still space available.
And recently, Ethnic Media Services also hosted a discussion on how minority and women-founded businesses were shut out of the Paycheck Protection Program.
So all the money went to the larger banks, and if you were a tiny company or a barbershop or something, you didn't have a relationship with one of those large banks, it's unlikely you would have gotten a loan because, like most businesses, they service their best customers first, whoever got there, and that's how the money got distributed. The other issue was about, especially in the Black community, almost 90% of the businesses are sole proprietorships. So you don't have a W-2, they're 1099 employees. So the example I give people, if you're a barbershop owner and you're just renting out your chairs and someone else a barber can rent those 4 chairs, you don't have W-2 employees, they're just agents of yours, people, your partners of yours. And so if you have to produce that documentation, and if you do a whole program based on your payroll, you're not going to be able to show that because it doesn't exist. So those are some of the issues.
That was Charles Phillips, Class A Director of New York's Federal Reserve Bank. Reporting for the Liberated Sisters COVID Report, I'm Angela Birdsong.
And now, here is Student Minister Ishmael Muhammad, Minister Farrakhan's National Assistant, with a timely message. Farrakhan predicted the unraveling of a great nation, delivered June 8th. This message can be viewed in its entirety at noi.org/webcast. I would like to say now, thank you so much to Sister Felicia, the Poetess Morris, Angela Birdsong, and all of you for tuning in. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad saying if it's impacting our community or can uplift us as a people, let's talk about it. Here is Student Minister Ishmael Muhammad, which will close out our show for today. Peace.
Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the One God, to whom all praise is due, the Lord of all the world. We thank Allah for His beneficence. We thank Him for His mercy. We thank Him for His prophets and the scriptures which they brought. We make no distinction between any of God's prophets, messengers, and servants. We thank Him for Abraham, to Moses, to Jesus, to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and upon all of Allah's noble and honorable servants. I am a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Under the leadership, guidance, and example of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I could never thank Allah enough. No matter how long I am blessed to live. If I live to be 1,000, which I don't think I will make it that far, maybe not even 500 or 300 or 200. But every day that Allah gives me breath, I want to be found expressing and demonstrating my sincere thanks for His intervention for fulfilling the promise that He made before we were brought into slavery in the holds of ships. I thank Him for that promise that He made to His servant Abraham, telling Abraham that his seed would be a stranger in a land, they would be slaves for 400 years. But God told Abraham that time, I will come. I will judge that nation which they my will serve. And they shout from they shall go back to their fathers. They won't go back empty-handed. They go back with great substance. He would give to his people a great inheritance, a great treasure in that is in, and the wisdom and the truth he would reveal to them from eternity. I thank Allah for his attention in our affairs of Master Fard Muhammad, and for raising from black people in America his Messiah, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and giving to him from the black man of America his chief helper, his chief servant, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, as a divine reminder, as a divine warner to complete the mission of the. I greet you all with a word of peace. Once again, in the Arabic language, Assalamu alaikum. My dear listeners, my teacher, my minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, has warned us for over 4 decades now what we are witnessing in America and all over the world. In his Savior's Day address in Detroit in February of this year, he took up the title for his subject, The Unraveling of a Great Nation. He said to us, quote, that when you unravel something, you undo twisted, knitted, or woven threads. You investigate and solve or explain something complicated or puzzling. To unravel, it also means to separate, disintegrate, to take apart, destroy. The condition of America is puzzling. The world is looking at a country going to hell. The world is looking at a president who wants to be king when the Constitution and the Founding Fathers were trying to run away from what they suffered in Europe under the kings. So, there is a verse in the Quran, in the 16th chapter, the 92nd verse, which reads, "Be not like her who unravels her yarn, disintegrating it into pieces after she has spun it strongly." Her here is not talking about a woman as such, but if you see somebody knitting something with a design, and they leave it not secure one stitch, and then the same woman who stitched it strongly starts pulling on the yarn that she has knitted until it comes to pieces. And that is what's happening to America as we speak. America, dear listeners, was not built on a firm foundation. Although the weaving was done strongly, the nation called America was doomed from its inception. Tell me, how do you build a nation killing the native people? How do you build a nation bringing a whole people out of Africa to America? This is America's foundation. So, for them to lie to you and make you think that America is a land of promise for you, and you believe it. No wonder Jesus said, I will set up a new heaven and a new earth, and the former things will pass away. Brothers and sisters, listeners, all of this is to go at the end of the time of the rule. God comes and is present to set up government. Behold, I make all things new. There will be a new heaven, a new earth. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that the new heaven means a new spiritual power, and the new earth is a new political power. Because if heaven and earth don't work together, the earth suffers. If the rain stops, if the clouds don't come over the earth dies. So when you've got government, and all you can do as a member of Congress is say a weak prayer to open the Senate and the House of Representatives, but there is no real connection to God. Yet you say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and you go on to say, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You lie. You don't respect God. You don't honor God that you say your nation is under. A nation that proclaims to be under God is a nation that's careful about how it deals with the issue of justice. A nation that claims to be under God is careful in everything that it does, knowing that at the end of the day, it must answer to God. So the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, we are living in the time of the unraveling of this great nation. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan further said, you, my poor, pitiful brothers and sisters, you're opting to be a part of that. It is unraveling right in front of your eyes. You see the country cascading downward. You see the moral fiber of America getting into the gutter. Who wants a membership in a house of whores? Bought and paid for leaders. Nobody can stand up if the enemy says you don't stand up for that. So Satan is having a field day with America and making evil fair seeming. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in what we are witnessing now, wrote in his monumental book, Fall of America, he said then, America is beset all around now with troubles and destructions which have happened. That America thought that she was immune to the troubles and destructions which are going on in other nations. But now the same trouble and destruction that you read as happening in other countries and to other nations, these same troubles and destruction with their evil and gruesome sound are knocking on the door of America. they were knocking 50 years ago. It has come in now into the house. Now America, who criticized other nations in handling its internal affairs, much of which she had a hand in and creating those troubles in other nations by meddling in their affairs, is now front and center before the entire world and how she has handled the coronavirus pandemic and another killing of a black man. The Washington Post came out with an article this week, and the headline of the Washington Post has this title, this headline: CIA analysts have seen these scenes before in countries before a collapse. The article goes on to say these scenes have been disturbingly familiar to CIA analysts accustomed to monitoring scenes of societal unraveling abroad. The massing of protesters, the ensuing crackdowns, and the awkwardly staged displays of strength by a leader determined to project authority. In interviews and posts on social media in recent days, current and former U.S. intelligence officials have expressed dismay at the similarity between events at home and the signs of decline or democratic regression they were trained to detect in other nations. One of the CIA analysts said, "I've seen this kind of violence. This is what autocrats do. And this is what happens in countries before a collapse. And it really does unnerve me." The professor at King University, Gail Helt, said the images of U.S. cities combined with the president's incendiary statements echo clashes she's covered over a dozen years. The CIA developed in Malaysia and former CIA officials render similar bold verdicts. And lastly, the article said the imagery of a head of call with other officials saying dominate the streets, the battle space, iconic images that will define America from mine. And it further says, much more difficult for us to distinguish ourselves from other contests or incidents. U.S. officials restraint or crackdowns against protesters, vulnerable groups in Turkey, Syria, and other countries. But again, for one from God, He told you, America, that you were critical of the nations and how they handle unrest, dissatisfaction of their citizens, and you criticize them using violence. Now you're behaving. Look at your response to your own people. The minister, you think you were going to face this. And let's see, and it happens with orders, how you act. Current issue of the final call reported that Commission for Accountability from World Rights and organizations engaging in solidarity in world capitals from to Liberia, London, Tokyo, Toronto, and as far as Australia, New Zealand, and people protest the Arab concept. Now, you asked and criticized leaders of other nations. Here is what about you. China's news as Pelosi's land, Nancy Pelosi, Hong Kong protest cite behold. So the editor of China Globe wrote, "Nations now can sight from their windows." Beijing condemned politicians. This Pelosi Flora Islands come from Hong Kong leaders who are categorized China as rioters of terrorism. And brother, the Ghanaian President Jim Rawlings said, quote, especially from some officers against black citizens, shock the American precedents of their own. What and the supreme leader, Ayatollah of the Islamic Republic of Iran, said, quote, if you're dark-skinned, walking in the U.S., you'll be alive in the next sense. To criticize America and say Americans are deprived of rights. Now, civil rights has never been about civil rights. It has always been a human rights issue. The Supreme Leader, Ayatollah, said, how can they, talking about America, claim to support human rights? The fact that African Americans represent of society and 25% of the victims of police brutality are black. My dear and beloved listeners, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to us that this people that have been under, people that are disabled, in peace. But Elijah is all of America that we have food justice in it, knowing the enemy, signs of warfare of the sciences that the slave and the slave masters refuse to. The science of war deals with you knowing what to fight in the ring. Study his opponent, his strengths, so that he can effectively fight his opponent victorious. It is our of the enemy that keeps us from securing the justice, the equality, right. The Bible tells us, way of peace they do not know. There is no justice ere pass. So it's time to mess from these people because don't way of peace. The book of Isaiah tells us the people that we're dealing with, that they have turned them, talking about the paths of justice, the road of justice, into crooked roads, and no one who walks along them will know peace. I want to help us from my teacher, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, all of us that are in pain, all of us, the angry fight, and your anger and your distraction is just. But we got a nature of the enemy. In the book of John, Jesus, very heated exchange with the enemy. The enemy, like he always does, is to put